Hello, my lovelies. Welcome back. Today, I want to continue talking about Saturn through the houses. So, in the last video, we talked about house 1 to 6, and in this video, we are going to talk about house 7 to 12. What is Saturn? Saturn is often referred to as the taskmaster. The taskmaster of the zodiac. It's about resilience and ultimately achieving mastery in one field. And we get to the houses, right? The house is going to be the field. Wherever Saturn sits in your chart, that's the field of, first of all, getting to know yourself better, getting to love yourself more, and achieving mastery. And there will be a lot of activity in this area, I would say, where we feel like we have to go through the ringer over and over and over and over again. Now, that brings me to the first house we're going to talk about, because Saturn in the 7th house, you can imagine where the lessons have to be learned. Yes, in relationships. Now, the 7th house is the house of relationships, one-on-one relationships and partnerships. So we're talking about business partnerships here. And when we talk about one-on-one relationships, yes, it's your life partner, your partner in marriage, but also your friends, the person that is close to you, that knows you, that has known you for years, right? That person also falls into the 7th house. Now, Saturn in the 7th house places the spotlight, as we said, on relationships. And early in life, you might feel like there's always delays when it comes to relationships. There's always like you thought, oh, you found that person and you're like, wasn't them. This is also a placement where I always don't want to say it, but let me say it, where we see divorces a lot, right? Saturn breakup, Saturn restricting. But generally what the person with Saturn in 7th house has to learn is lessons in boundaries, compromise, and commitment. And over time, if you have this placement, will learn to build lasting and meaningful connections based on mutual respect. And the main lesson, I would say, for this house is cultivate balanced and mature relationships. The 7th house mirrors the first house. Now, what's the first house? The first house is your identity. So there will, through those lessons in the 7th house, your identity will change. And vice versa. Your then changed identity will also attract different partners into your life. I have to remember, it always starts with us, right? Like, there is no such thing as it was the other person's fault. Your contribution was there too, in what shape or form ever. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what shape or form, but your contribution was there as well. Sometimes we have relationships here where we are not getting married actually until we are in our 50s or 60s. That doesn't mean that we don't have relationships before, but it never gets to the point. It's all about understanding what your actual needs are, understanding yourself better, right? That's the whole point of relationships. Through relationship, we get to understand ourselves better. We see ourselves, right? It's like looking in the mirror, understanding what have we created so far within us and what have we brought forth through that. Because the outer is always just quote unquote, a reflection of the inner. The main fear, the biggest fear here is the fear of vulnerability or commitment. But also, I do see a lot of, am I worthy of what I really want? Maybe not, so I'm going to just do this and try to make this work because I don't feel worthy of what I actually want. But once you've worked through those lessons, right, and you probably have to go through a few of them, your reward is stable, long-lasting partnerships that are built on trust and shared goals. But again, when I say you will probably have to go through a lot of lessons, it's not a punishment. We gotta stop looking at Saturn as a punishment. It's not a punishment. It's an experience. The soul's intention in this lifetime is to have experiences. And we, from our limited point of view, we look at it as good or bad, right? There's like good experience and a bad experience. But from a soul's perspective, it's just an experience that you intended to have so you can grow through it. The 8th house, the house of transformation and shared resources. Now, Saturn in the 8th house brings lessons in trust, intimacy, and shared resources. You may experience challenges in dealing with loss, managing your joint finances, but also letting go. And that brings us back to the second house because, again, that's where the mirror is. Now, you really getting your house in order in this area will then lead to deeper, more meaningful, and more functioning, healthily functioning relationships in the 8th house. You standing in your worth, being in your worth, not just in your mind, right? Not just thinking, oh yeah, of course I'm worthy. No, embodying it, living from that place, living from the place of I'm an abundant being. That will then help you deal with whatever needs to be dealt with in the 8th house. And generally over time, with this placement, you develop resilience and also a deep understanding of your transformational journey. But again, it always brings us back to the second house. Whatever we have going on in the 8th, we got to go back to the second and look what don't we have in order there? Where do we believe we are not worthy? Where do we believe we can't have the thing we would, we desire? It goes back to that. If you refuse to look at that, you will not get deeper in the 8th house because it takes you to understand the second house to be able to go really deep in the 8th house. And the main challenge here is, well, first of all, the fear of vulnerability, but also the fear of, quote unquote, not being worthy. And then the resistance of letting go of that, what holds you where you're at. Because it takes awareness and understanding, because all of that is most likely very, very subconscious. Maybe you're conscious of a little bit of, a few of your quote unquote self-worth issues, but it takes a lot of awareness and soul searching to really get there, to understand where those triggers came from, those worthiness triggers. So those, often what I see here also is the poverty mindset. And what I mean by poverty mindset is it's like, okay, well, others can have it, but I can't. I am not enough for what I want. I haven't worked hard enough. I don't deserve it yet. And again, a lot of it is very subconscious, probably ingrained through your upbringing in some shape or form. And again, this is not about blaming your parents at all. All we want in this lifetime is have experiences, but our limited human mind looks at it from a bad and good perspective. But from a soul perspective, there is no bad or good. It just is. Everything just is in consciousness. And it's up to you how you view it and what you then do with it. Now, the 9th house, the house of, expansion, the house of the belief system, the house of philosophy, also the house of adventure in the broader sense. Now, with Saturn in the 9th house, expanding your horizons might feel like a slow process. You may feel or you may face obstacles in higher education, but also traveling. Maybe you've always would have liked to go places when you were younger, but something always kept you in that place where you probably still are. And I think over time, you have the opportunity to develop a more disciplined approach to exploring your perspective, but also exploring new places, new environments. And again, this will come through understanding what actually held you back, that it was actually you that held you back. And again, we go back to the 3rd house. And when we're in one house, we always look at the other side. What is not integrated in the other side? And what needs to be integrated? So what needs to be integrated in your 3rd house? What needs to be understood in your 3rd house? What are you not fully on board with in your 3rd house, which is your early life education, also obviously your early life conditioning, siblings, aunts, uncles, immediate family play a big role here. Your environment, where you've been raised, the way you've been raised, that was maybe not very open to other places, other cultures, other religions, may even, because the 9th house also holds that theme, right? The theme of religion, not spirituality as a whole. That's in the 12th house, but the more the dogma of that, right? The religious understanding, the man-made, quote unquote, spirituality, which I'm not saying that this is good or bad. It just is, right? Like religion it's a human construct because it gives spirituality boundaries, right? It gives you the mosque, it gives you the church, it gives you the priest, right? Like you don't have that in the 12th house. In the 12th house, it's just consciousness, and it's like your direct connection to the divine. The lesson in this house is, we already talked about it, expanding your mind with purpose, but also with structure. And then the challenge is overcoming your dogmatic beliefs or your fears of stepping out of your comfort zone. And the reward for that would be wisdom and also a deeply rooted sense of purpose. Now, the 10th house of career and public image. Saturn in the 10th often indicates a strong focus on career and public life. Early in life, it may bring challenges in finding your path, finding your way, earning recognition, and that can look very different for different people. Like, this can mean you get going early in life with one path because maybe in your family you've all been lawyers, and you didn't even question it. You go and you're going to be a lawyer too, and then you realize, wow, that is actually not for me. That is not me. And so you through that you learn and understand what your purpose actually is, what you are actually here to bring forth for you. But you going through these challenges, obviously, studying law is not, it's not an easy undertaking, or even like medicine, maybe you come from a long line of doctors, and was just expected, you're going to be a doctor too. But you go through that and you eventually realize, this is not for me. This is a placement that pushes the individual to work really, really hard. It's like the daily grind. But again, at some point you realize, well, actually, it was never about it. It was always about loving myself more and maturing through that, but also having a deeper connection to myself through that. And then from that place, I do the things that are actually for me. So the lesson is building a legacy through dedication, but also integrity, right? Your integrity with what truly is for you. And that again is that maybe it's not for you to be a doctor. It's not for you to be a lawyer. Maybe it's, you want something completely different. And the challenge stems from that, right? It's overcoming your fear of failure or rejection, being rejected by your family, right? 4th house. We got to go back to the 4th house because that's where the mirror is. What does your family expect from you? And that might be very subtle, right? That might not be even a direct expectation where you've been told this is what we expect, but it's just an understanding, that subdued understanding of, no, I have to do this, or I need to do that, or I should do that. And then the reward here is, at last, a fulfilling career and lasting professional success based on. Then the 11th house of community and your aspiration. The 11th house brings lesson, well, first of all, in friendships, community, and then also your long-term goals, your aspiration, the bigger picture kind of deal. So you may feel like an outsider at times. You might have friends, but maybe you don't have many. And if you have a lot of friends, the connection might be we are friends because of this and that. And I think through that you learn what you actually need in a friend, what you actually want in a friendship. Also, the community where you actually feel at home. Maybe the community you were raised in, you didn't feel home there. And through living life, you understand what you actually need in when it comes to community, when it comes to the people that you want to be surrounded by. In this house, like in all the other houses, we look at the opposite house, the 5th house, the house of creation, your creative potential, and how you are able to practice that in the outer world, in your community, and how that actually gives to the collective. That's also the lesson, right? Building meaningful relationships and contributing to the greater good. So what you are creating, and we are not just talking about the arts here, right? We're not talking about you painting something. Could obviously be one expression of it, but creation, like what are you creating in this life that then also serves the other, the greater good? The challenge here is overcoming your fear of rejection and difficulty in trusting each other, or each other meaning you trusting others, right? The people around you, your community. And the reward for that is a strong network and the ability to achieve your dreams through that network. Once you find the right people, I don't want to say climb up the ladder, that's usually what we do in the 10th house, but you really succeed in life. And not just in form of you making money or you living a good life, but you living a fulfilled life and giving back, giving to others through that. Right? By you living your best life, you give back to the people around you. And because I remember I said earlier, early in life, you may feel like an outsider, but these experiences are here to teach you to form more meaningful connections. And once you've learned that, once you've understood that, there is this give and take between you and the community that feels very natural. This is also a placement that feels very at home in the modern world. I often see this also as a placement that has a lot of success when it comes to working online, the internet. That is something for you, where you can be really successful and also give to others through that. Now, the 12th house, the house of spirituality and the subconscious, in the 12th house, Saturn calls you to confront your fears and also those subconscious patterns and the unseen aspects of life. So early in life, you might struggle with isolation or a sense of being disconnected, but over time, you develop spiritual resilience and also a deep connection to your inner world, aka, your divine, your divinity, your own divinity that is connected to the divine, to the universe, to God, whatever you want to call it, but that is not related to religion. This is not a religious placement. But yeah, isolation might be a big topic for you, specifically in your youth, probably also when you get older. The way you live your life might include a lot of solitude, like time on your own. That is, it's a necessity for you to digest life, to digest the interactions with the people around you. So yeah, the lesson is embracing that solitude and not losing yourself in it, not going the other way, falling into depression. That could be a lower vibration of this, but then also developing inner strength through spiritual practices. Again, we're not talking religion here. The challenge is overcoming those fears and then also your tendency of escapism that can show up in, like I already said, depression, anxiety, not wanting to be around people, right? Just trying to hide. And if you work through all these lessons, right, the lessons that show up for you, the reward is a profound spiritual wisdom and also inner peace, because that is thing that specifically early in life feels foreign, that inner peace. You spend a lot of time in solitude, but it doesn't feel peaceful. It feels like you just do that because you don't want to be around people. In conclusion, I would say Saturn's placement by house reveals where we are being asked to grow, develop discipline, and also create lasting foundations. And while the lessons may be challenging, they ultimately lead to profound rewards and then also personal mastery. And we cannot forget that self-love is such a big topic here. Like it is not said enough. It is not said often enough in astrology when we talk about Saturn. So embrace Saturn as a teacher, and you'll find that its influence will help you build a life of meaning, a life of strength, and also a life of purpose. With that, I am going to love you and leave you. If you have any questions, feel free to ask, and I will talk to you in the next episode.